I think in order to understand our history, you have to look at both the good and the bad. And unfortunately for us, our current history begins in the bad. What I mean by that is our church has been around for over 16 years, but in the fall of 2010, our founding pastor and former pastor suddenly resigned. And with his resignation, created a lot of turmoil in our church. And it unfortunately split the church. Well over half of our people left fairly quickly in the process. And it was just such an emotionally charged time, which is understandable. No matter if you stayed or left, it was difficult. It was just hard. We had for about 10 or 11 weeks straight, the attendance every single week went down. We didn't know where the bottom was. Each week, less people meant less people that you were connected to. The elders made a decision that I believe God supernaturally blessed, and it launched our church on a trajectory that has led us to where we are today. And that decision was in the midst of the deepest time of turmoil and confusion and intensity, that we simply were going to honor God. And we were going to take the high road and just extend grace and love to people as best we were able. And I really believe that was a moment that because we honored God, He chose to bless us. And I remember actually the meeting really well. As the elders, we were talking about it. And I remember the conversation went to a point where we said, it's quite possible we don't survive this. It's quite possible that LCC will no longer be a church. Because we didn't know where the bottom was. It just every week was just kind of going less. But we just felt like we had a certain peace about it that said if that was God's desire for the church to no longer be, then we were going to honor Him until that last day. We were just trying to really survive and just kind of live for that upcoming week. And as we were planning on, how do you do church? We came to the simple conclusion, and this was the elders and the staff that was there, is that we were going to do two things. Keep it really simple. We were going to love God and we were going to love people. And so that's what we focused on. We focused on loving God through really teaching solid, the Bible, teaching our people how to worship better, discipling people. But then we also created an environment where we said we're just going to love on people. Anyone that comes is welcomed, and we were going to help them through whatever season of life. And it was just such a powerful thing. The more we loved God and the more we loved people, the more people He gave us to love. Every single week for 2 years, the attendance was like higher than the week before. And since that time, we've never had a year where we've averaged less attendance than the year before. But the reason I just use that number is each one of those people, those numbers were people who came, and they weren't just people, they were stories and they were situations of life. And like for me in my own heart and for our staff, if you were to get them in here and ask them about it, what we would tell you is not numbers, we would tell you stories. We would tell you the marriages that were reconciled, and we would tell you the families that were brought back together.
If I didn't have LCC, my life would be out of control. I didn't listen to anyone, and I did whatever I wanted, even when it was wrong. I was mean, rude, and wild. My life was dark, and I hated it and myself. I thank God all the time for LCC. My attitude and my demeanor has changed, and my eyes have been opened to the beauty and the truth that I am very blessed. LCC was my game changer.
We would talk about generational curses that were broken, and we would talk about how the children are being discipled and memorizing scriptures, and how the youth are coming to church even though their parents weren't, and now their parents are coming because they were coming to church.
6 years ago, my brother Brett brought my siblings and I to the Wednesday night ministries at LCC. It honestly just changed our life in ways that I can't even explain. Before we came to LCC, my family was really just heading down a path that we probably shouldn't have been on. And I'm so grateful for the people at LCC, the youth ministry, and just all the people who have really just reached out to us. When I take a step back to really observe everything that God has done in my life through LCC and how He's used this church to change my life, I'm in absolute awe of His unrelenting love and desire to be in relationship with us.
About 4 years ago, our family experienced the loss of a child, and that was the time when I felt that I started to understand what the body of Christ was all about.
We were supported, we were loved on, we were checked on, we were prayed for. It really, really, really was an eye-opener to us on exactly what the body of Christ should look like.
We wouldn't have been able to survive the experience of losing a child.
We learned so much as far as exactly what the love of Christ should look like and exactly how we should be a part of that. Without LCC, we wouldn't have experienced that. It gave us an overwhelming sense of peace, and it helped us get through all of it.
So every single week as people kept coming, it's just one of the most amazing and humbling things to be a part of. And once God brought that momentum, with it came healing. We knew we had a calling, and our calling was to change Lancaster. Things started to change, and we had a lot of excitement, a lot of momentum, and God was just adding to our church every single week. There's a passage in Acts chapter 2 where it talks about Peter gives this incredible message and people are saved, and it goes on just to describe the early church, and it just says, and the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. In many ways, that's what our church felt like. It's just people kept coming, and it was so exciting. It was exciting to see the sanctuary full. It was exciting to get to meet new people. But it quickly became clear to us that it was also leading us toward a problem. And the problem was we were going to run out of space.
We're standing actually in the last room that we've not remodeled. They brought me in one day and started talking about maybe utilizing it as a media suite. And I was kind of excited because it was our own space or whatever, but the room really is weird. And I even was going to put my desk back in the little corner thing. It's kind of an awkward room. It's got poles in the middle of it. The elevator mechanical room is right there. The floor's unlevel in here. There's a concrete slab that sticks up 4 inches off the ground. It's not really a good room to really reuse. The fact that this is the only room that we've not remodeled really is a testimony to the fact that we've utilized the building to its capacity.
In the past 3 years, the children's ministry has tripled. So it's exciting, but it also creates a problem for us because when we break into small groups, we have hundreds of kids and we just don't have the room for that. So we get 30 or 40 adults in here, the teachers and the volunteers, and then you have 100 kids in here. That's a lot of people in a small space. So when God gives us more kids, we get to that critical point of what do we do now? Where are we going to put all these kids and these adults? So it's exciting, but it's scary.
Movement started out meeting in this room, but years ago we outgrew this room. So currently we meet in the sanctuary where we really don't have any dedicated space for youth ministry. The only true dedicated space we have is a small closet off of the front of the sanctuary, which we share with the music department.
There's a lot of hurting people that come in and they don't have any relationships at all, and so for them to begin that process of starting to make true relationships, true friends, healthy friendships, if they had a place for connection, for that to even start, then that would be ideal. That would be great.
One of the ways that we bring wholeness is we give classroom opportunities. I believe that care also comes in relationship, but sometimes people need some entry steps in what to do. They want to get out of debt. They want to have a better marriage. They want to improve in their new Christian life. They just don't know how to do it. So you just got to give them some handles how to do that. I've got about a whole list of things that I wanted as classes, and I'm having to turning down more opportunities for a potential class than I have classrooms for.
We have maximized this space. Like there's nothing else we can do here. And so that's when we started the process of looking outside of the walls of this current building. And we really did look at any property in town that was even a possibility, any building that was vacant that might give us a square footage that we need. We really wanted to stay inside the city. Here, I'll show you a building. This is one of the ones that we looked at. And I still remember when Joe and I came up to look at the building up here. It's like 250,000 square feet, something like that. And we were both driving our trucks, and we pulled up here, and the doors to the building were open, and so we just pulled right in, and it was crazy. I mean, our trucks they just absolutely absorbed our trucks. And so these are the two doors. You just drove right in, and it's just huge open space here and over there, and it's a lot of storage. When it all came down to it, it was just too big, and it would have not been cost effective and not enough parking. So this building was one that I absolutely had my heart set on. I remember the first time I came and actually physically stepped into the building. They had an auction, and I walked in, and I remember looking to the left, and it was just huge. And I looked, and I was like, man, this building's, gigantic. And then I turned to look to the right, and I thought, man, it's just as big that way. And I mean, just loved it. I really had my heart set on it, prayed about it, had other people in the church praying about it. But it just, it never worked out. The owner really wasn't in a position that he had to sell or wanted to sell, and so they didn't really negotiate with us. And when Tractor Supply came in, that kind of became official for us that we weren't in the running anymore for the building. And so one day, our real estate agent called me, Jeff Sauer, and he said, have you considered, and he named this location. And I was like, well, yeah, that'd be awesome, but there's a current business in there. And so he called me back like less than a week later, and he said, man, I got good news. They're actually gonna put it on the market this upcoming year, which was really cool because it gave us a head start. Like, they hadn't officially done it yet, but it gave us a head start to try to secure financing. And God did like all these miracles to make this happen, that this spot that we would have never imagined could be a possibility, he opened up to give to us. And this building, in my opinion, is just the absolute perfect building. It is the ideal location, the size of the building. We would also be purchasing another outbuilding that had businesses currently leasing from it. And when it was all said and done, the income that we would gain from the leases would overall cover the entire mortgage payment for the purchase of the building. So in essence, it was God gave us this perfect location, perfect building for absolute free. And the only challenge to us was, would we raise the money to remodel it? And you just can't look at that and see anything but the move of God in that situation. And so, for us, we're super excited. We were able to close on the deal. We were able to get the building. And what this showed me, the entire process, as we went through and looked at all these other buildings, and our hopes were up and they were down, and throughout this whole process, what it showed us was that God is absolutely faithful. I mean, he gave us the ideal, but then here's the challenge. And this is really where it comes to with us, is God has shown that he is faithful. Now he's challenging us. Will we be faithful? Are we willing to take that next step forward as a church and raise the funds to remodel it so that we can impact the city that we're called to impact? LCC, are you ready to see our new home? So, 3 years ago, I stood before the church and we did the video, and we said to them, hey, here's the challenge, this is what we're going to do. And the church responded so well. I think in our minds, we thought that from that point on, it would be pretty easy, that everything would just kind of fall into place because God had opened up so many doors. But the reality was it was anything but easy, and we faced so many challenges. But honestly, throughout the process, even though the time schedule of God was different than ours, I look back now and I'm so thankful for what he took us through, because through that time, he really used it to mold us and shape us as a church even more. And so really this is a story of God's faithfulness. It's one of those things that I think was a little bit surreal for us, because it was so much in theory for so many years. And then when we finally got it, and announced to the church, our church just took ownership of it right away. And so we put it to the church and encouraged them, challenged them, talked about it. And one of the things I've always loved about our church is that's what they respond to. We do have a culture of transparency. I am by nature and by choice a transparent communicator. I like to give as much information as possible because I think it builds trust. And so I just communicated to the church, this is what we have, this is what we need to do. And they responded. The church pledged $1.5 million toward the project. And then, unfortunately, it just felt like God hit the brakes on our project. And what happened was the ministry that we were going with, they just didn't have the resources. So financing fell through. At first, it was worrisome to me. And then when it just became the reality, they're not going to be able to loan us the money, that was, to say it mildly, that was devastating to me. It was shocking because I just didn't understand what God was doing. What it caused me to do was to question myself and to question my ability as a leader. And it was a tough season, and I was really questioning if I was able to hear from God anymore. And as a lead pastor, it was a very vulnerable place for me, one of insecurity, and I was really struggling. And I remember one of the moments that was kind of a breaking point in the positive for me was I was at really at one of my lowest moments, and the gym that I work out at, the owners I'm friends with, and it was on a Saturday. The gym was closed, but I asked them if I could go work out, and they said sure. And one of the owners gave me his keys, and I went over and I went into the gym by myself. I had worship music playing, and I was getting ready to work out, and I just started praying, and I just remember asking God, some really tough questions. I was like, God, I just remember asking God, am I the guy that should lead the church? I felt like I hadn't really been hearing from God, and I asked God, am I the guy that should lead? God, are you mad at me? Did I fail in some way? I was ready to step down. I was ready to pursue other options, for myself, so that the church could be blessed. And I just remember being in this room and just asking, God, I haven't heard from you. I don't feel like it. I just sort of kind of that dark place. And then I just felt like God spoke to me, that he wasn't done with our church, that this was a season, and I started to once again hear from God. And I just remember it was like the Spirit of God. I felt his presence. I felt him guiding and speaking to me. And I knew in that moment, I just knew like it was going to be okay. What seemed like chaos to me was a part of the perfect plan of God, that he was slowing us down so that we would be in a better situation for his perfect timing. And that's one of the truths that I think God so clearly taught me through that tough season, was that God's ways are just different, but they're still good. That he rarely takes us on a path that we would naturally go through, but every time he does that, he does it for the purpose of making us better. And in that season where everything slowed down, it forced us and allowed us to address some things that weren't ideal. I wouldn't say they were unhealthy, they just weren't ideal. And so God allowed us to work on them. It allowed us to get our finances even in better order, because as we went through the process of securing financing with another company, it just caused us to really look at everything that we were doing, how we structured stuff, our discipleship process as we looked at what that looks like. And then we did a radical transition in our church of moving to covenant relationship membership, which was a very difficult process, but one that is absolutely reaping the fruit now, and it's a blessing to our church. And all these things in every way allowed us to get to a place where now we are, and I say this really with confidence, we are as healthy as we can be right now going forward. We're still seeking God always. He's always tweaking us and changing our lives. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we are just in that place of health. And then it just got really exciting.
12 months ago when we walked into this building, it was just an open store. And then to see where it's at now, 12 months later, is amazing. I can remember the first few months, it seemed like everything was very, very slow. Some days you would come in and they would dig up a sewer line, but then the next day they would just cover it over with concrete. Some of the highlights of this have been the day the air conditioners went on the roof. I can remember just everybody in the parking lot watching the huge crane as they set them up there. Other days have been watching the Healy coils go into the ground and the foundations being set for what our sanctuary will sit on. Other exciting days were when we finally saw the walls going in and to see where children's ministry would be and how every room would be utilized. Personally, some of the most exciting days for me have been the days where we've poured the concrete out front and the concrete tree that has everyone's names in it. To see the colors we picked out and the carpet samples we picked out, and the kids' rooms, to see all those things come together is the most exciting part for me. It's been an exciting 12 months. The building is amazing, the location is amazing. I cannot wait to see what God does through our church to impact the community around us.
When we first set out, it was in our way of thinking, it was our ministry is healthy, our ministry is dynamic, we just need more space. So in our minds it was, we're going to have the exact same ministry, just with bigger rooms. When we started to build and they started to frame the walls and everything started to become reality and I started to walk through the building, all of a sudden what I understood was it's not going to be the exact same ministry with just bigger rooms. God is now giving us very awesome, unique, and powerful tools that what we're going to do in the future is going to be even greater than what we've done in the past.
God has been so good to Tree.Church Kids Ministry. And so as I stand in this room and I realize in this new building, this one room was the size of what we had before. And now we have these spaces all over this wing of the children's ministry where we are going to be able to disciple each age group on their level. I am so excited at what God is going to do within these walls, and I can't wait to see what our future is at Tree.Church Kids.
Well, I'm so excited for this space because now it's going to give us the environment to lead starting point groups, baptism classes, covenant relationship classes, not to mention First Touch and Connect Group leader training, all for the sole purpose for help people to know and to love Jesus Christ.
This building is a sign of what God's doing in our community, and we have such great things to be thankful for here. We have a beautiful sanctuary, and I can't wait to see it completely full and to see what God's going to do with our children's ministry and the way He's moving in our community already.
I am so excited about all of the space there is for connection. One of my favorite things about the tree are the people. So having room to just hang out and talk. I'm just so excited to have space for that and time for that.
With our daughter being 8 months old, going on 9 months now, she's going to be able to experience all of the ministries, the Playhouse, the Clubhouse, the Treehouse, and I'm really excited about that.
We've always had a value about getting people into purpose relationships, and so it's great that groups can meet throughout the week, but I'm most excited about there now being a space where groups and individuals can talk on a Sunday morning. I'm excited about that space, and I'm excited about seeing people truly connect on a level where they can grow together, they can have purpose conversations, and so looking forward to that being something that happens on a regular basis.
What I'm most excited about is worship. Whether it be our worship team or the people that are going to fill this room, the way that we make God the number one priority together, the way we worship Him together, and for this space to truly be a house of worship, for that to be the number one priority, to come in and worship God together as a family and as a community.
So many age groups of kids and so many types of activities, and it just seems like so much was considered into making this place feel like a home.
I'm really excited from a worship standpoint. The new space and technology is just really going to allow us to go to an amazing place in worship. It's just going to be so life-changing for so many people. So I'm really excited about this opportunity.
I'm just really excited to worship and to see more lives continue to change.
From being in their existing building for 15 years and being in the technology space for most of that time, just being able to have fresh and new stuff and kick everything up to the next level is going to be awesome.
It's just a welcoming space. It's just going to be just a blessing to be able to greet the people, help them out, direct them to where they need to be, and then at some point they'll go into the sanctuary and get a chance to hear the word. So I'm just really excited about it.
What I'm most excited about with the new space is the ability to create these amazing spaces with the technology that He's given us. And my hope and my prayer is that what you experience when you come in is just an awesome opportunity to get into God's presence.
I'm really excited to have like a dedicated spot for like all the movement stuff. I'm just really excited for all the new space and all the connection that will go on here.
I'm really excited to see what God's going to do.
There was this one day throughout the construction project when I was coming through and kind of checking out the building, and I realized they had built the stage. And so I got up here by myself and just stood here and was looking out. And I really honestly don't know why this hadn't hit me before, but it was like the first moment where I realized that this could be the ministry that I spend the rest of my life with, and this could be the spot that I minister from. And I remember just saying to God, if that's your will, I would love for that to be, that I could be the lead pastor until my time of ministry is done. I want to lead well. I want to love well. I want to finish well. And in all I do, I want to lead the people that God has entrusted to me. I want to lead them in a way that honors God and that draws people into a relationship with Jesus Christ. It would be wonderful to be able to lead this congregation in a way that impacts our city, the way that I believe that we will. And so as I stood here on the stage looking out, and I just prayed, God, if that's your will, I would love for that to happen. And so the future is bright. I'm really confident that God is going to continue to bless us, in that we are going to not just impact our church, we're going to impact our city. And I think God placing us in the middle of the city, giving us the most dynamic staff in church and leaders, I think it's just unquestionable that he's doing something unique through the Tree.Church, and it's going to be powerful looking at the future. And so my last challenge is something that I'm praying consistently over our church. I want the church to be a place of worship, dynamic, reckless worship, where we are not worried about ourselves, not worried about our looks, our images, but we come together to lift up the mighty, beautiful name of our Savior. And nothing would bring me more excitement, more joy, than for our church to just be a church of physical worshipers, of engaging the presence of God, so that when any new person comes in, whether they understand it or can put words to what they're experiencing, that when they come in, they just step into the presence of a loving God, and they see authentic worship going on. And nothing would make me more excited. And then I would just say it, maybe I don't need to say this, but to the negative, nothing would disappoint me more than to have this beautiful building where it's not a place of worship. And so our challenge as a church, a couple years ago, when we did the first video, I said, church, here's our challenge. Are we going to raise the funds necessary to remodel the building? We did that. Our church has given above and beyond what they pledged. Now the challenge is, are we going to be a church where we are a house of worship, where we worship our God, we lift him up, we glorify him, not just with our words, but with our actions, with the lives that we live? And are we going to be the brightest light in Lancaster? And the same way I challenged you before and you responded, I'm confident that we together will respond to the challenge. So I'm excited. As I say often, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, I love you. I'm proud of you. And I sincerely hope that I get to lead you for many more years to come.